Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Retake League of Legends Edition. My name is Alex Shinkari Erdenberger. I'm here joined today by my friend Victor Vic Sharp Watney. Why don't you say hello?
Hello.
All right, so tonight we have a very special episode for you guys today. We are going to be taking a look at IEM Katowice. We're going to be talking about the series that excited us the most, maybe some games or teams that let us down, picks that we thought were interesting, and we're going to make some predictions for the coming week of North American and EU LCS. But before we get into that, we have a little bit of news for this week. A couple of news in terms of roster changes. Team Liquid is currently on the hunt for a new mid laner. Clearly, neither Link nor Golden Glue has been working out for them very well, so they're going to be looking for one of them new mid laners. And also, Broxa is now the permanent jungler for Fnatic, so that means Amazing is now a free spirit to go wherever he pleases. News item.
Except he just went down to CS.
Yeah. Oops. So, news item number 2 is where the Flash Wolves from the LMS become the IEM World Champions. For more on that later, so stick around. News item number 3 is where patch 7.4 has gone live on League of Legends servers. So that's nerfs to Maokai, Katarina, sort of, Jhin, Ryze, and Corki. Buffs to Bard and Cho'Gath. Possibly relevant, possibly not. We'll get to see. And nerfs to lots and lots of lethality items. Lots of, like, every single one.
Very nearly, yeah.
Sorry, Jhin players all over the world, but no more of that. News item number 4 is not so much a news item; it's more so a shout out. I'd like to make a special shout out to everyone who is in person at IEM Katowice and stayed until very late at night, from very early in the morning, to watch and cheer for both of the finalists in the tournament. You guys are the real MVP. You guys are super cool. Thanks so much. But speaking of IEM, we're going to move on to our segment of the week. We're going to talk about our series of the week. And now, obviously, this was a big tournament spanning over multiple days, so we can't get to each individual game, especially since there were a good amount of best of ones, and then so many games that were going to best of threes, and there's a very long tournament, so we can't get to every single one. So we are going to talk about the games that excited us the most. But it's a little upsetting because both of us picked semifinal games. So, but they were both so good. Okay, so. I really, really want to talk about G2 versus Rox Tigers. And this is more so I wanted to talk about because I made a prediction last week that, even though Rox Tigers coming into this tournament were a team that probably wasn't going to, be the winners of the tournament overall, I still think it's kind of a bad idea to count Korean teams out totally. They weren't the best coming into the tournament from the LCK, but they still made a fairly good showing, making it all the way to the semifinals and holding their own against G2 fairly well. Game 1 and Game 2, these were both games that were like, oh yeah, great, and it really just came down to who picked Rengar, if Rengar got an early lead, and who Rengar snowballed. Game 1, we talk about Seung Hwan, who was able to get first blood and then was able to use that to move forward and snowball the rest of his team. We talk about the Jace, and we talk about the Gangplank that just started to go off in that game, and it was just like, at first it was like, oh crap, Rengar, he's gonna ruin us, and then you see a 5-0 and 6 Gangplank just coming out like, hey guys, what's going on? Barrel, boom, you're dead. Like, that's all I really had to say about, especially Game 1. And not even Baron could save G2 from Rox, as they just got objective after objective, never seeming to overextend when it came to taking turrets and inhibitors.
That was a very cheeky Baron, though. It was very nicely done.
Yeah, I do agree with that 100%. Game 2, same thing again. We talk about, we're going to talk about, oh my god, Trick. I can't believe I forgot off the top of my head. Trick being on the Rengar, and he just had a great game too. You know, we saw both Rengars being first blood, and we looked like within the first 10 minutes, G2 has seven kills. Trick is on nearly 100% kill participation, and they're funneling gold into Perks' Ahri the entire time. G2 is sitting on 14 kills and a 5k goal lead at 20 minutes. Like,
It's almost like Rengar's a good champion.
It's almost like Rengar's a good champion. Yeah, I was so happy to see game 3. Okay, first ban Rengar. Okay, thank you, Jesus. All right, it was also a little bit interesting to see Ziggs and Lulu in a lane. I'm still not completely convinced with Ziggs. You know, there are a lot of people that have played it well, but I'm still not too convinced with it. Then game 3, things start off well for Rox. They're able to get a first blood at level 1 for Zyra against Sivir in the bot lane. And it's kind of proving that maybe you don't want to pick Sivir into Zyra, or maybe you don't want to pick Sivir so early because, you know, Malzahar and Zyra with all that poke makes level 1 to 3 just awful. It's just the worst. After 20 minutes, Rox Tiger takes the lead over G2 with a 5k gold lead of 4 kills. And the early game is just riddled with just great ganks on the copious amounts of squishy members of G2. And Rox uses this lead to take turret after turret. Mid-outer, top-outer, bottom-inner, mid-inner, all fall within a very small time frame within each other. G2 get a great team fight and try to take Baron, but it goes stolen by Seonghwan. This just means more and more losses. G2, as they lose more and more turrets, more and more team fights, the game is just looking bleak. It's looking awful. It's looking bad. And around 33 minutes, G2 is just like, hey, Rox is at Dragon. Let's go get Baron. Not only do they get the Baron, but they win the team fight. And G2 is just like, all right, great. And then they win more team fights. And then suddenly they're back in the game. And we're like, why is this happening? Rox was so far ahead, and they just kind of tossed it away. They win the game after around 40 minutes after picking up another Baron, take 4 towers, 2 inhibitors, a final team fight around a third Baron. It was able to close out the game. And that was just a great game. I love that game so much because G2 was able to find, you know, just a very small window. Everyone loves a good comeback story. Everyone loves a good comeback story. It's really, really
They would have loved IEM then.
So, Vic, what was your favorite series from this week?
Well, you know, you did spoil it,
Yeah.
but I'm going to take the semifinal that didn't have a longer pause than game time, which was H2K versus Flash Wolves. No, but seriously, this series was the more interesting of the semifinals for me because these are two teams that are near the top of their region. You alluded to it. Rox aren't the same team from Korea that they were previously. Yes, they had a really good showing in this tournament. They're the 8th place seed in Korea right now. Yeah. Kongdu, the other Korean team, is the 10th place seed. There wasn't good Korean representation at this tournament. So I looked for the team that, H2K, you know, except for the questionable loss to UL in Europe, are the top of their group. And the Flash Wolves are the dominant team in LMS, as they have been for the last few seasons. And, you know, this is maybe something different because the Western viewers don't get to see the Flash Wolves that often.
Yep.
LMS is in a region that has that English broadcast, really that official one. They aren't popularized. So this season, this was a lot of people's first chance to see the Flash Wolves, and man, did they deliver. You know, this series had everything that I love about this tournament. The pick ban was very same throughout the series, really, but that was kind of the way most of this tournament was. But the thing was, we've seen H2K have this problem. They play very strong early, and then they struggle late. They get caught. They over-aggress. There's that word the word that said IEM on fire, you could say.
Yeah.
And you know, and Flash Wolves have this really weird style, which is give up things early, stay back, then go. And you know what? Game 1, H2K didn't really want to fight. We saw them. They looked for objectives. They were down something like 3-0, but up to 2 or 3-1 in towers. You know, it really was just methodical play from H2K. They weren't going to open themselves up to those mistakes. They were able to take Baron. They took Dragons just kind of at will. Yankos played the map beautifully, running around Karsa. They had one very, very strange play when H2K pushed top lane and Mabel just decided to go Xpeke and run down mid lane. And H2K get like top inhib tower, top inhib, and mid inhib tower, while Maple's running down and he gets like mid inhib tower, and mid inhib. And you just look at this trade and you're like, what did I just see? The team with Baron got the better end of it, and H2K did get the better end of it, but that was the strangest trade we probably saw all series. And then Flash Wolves took one big fight in their base, and the wheels start to turn a little bit. Is this going to be the comeback? Flash Wolves got Baron, but that was all they got. H2K closed up the seams, and then they slowly but surely closed out the games. I think, Frostgurn was casting that series and said it best. That game was death by 1,000 cuts for the Flash Wolves. Yeah. But, game 2, for me, was where this series flipped on its head. Because H2K, again, they took control early. It looked very similar to game 1. You thought this methodical play came out of nowhere. They were just going to overwhelm the Flash Wolves. Yep. They had a 3K gold lead at 20 minutes. They looked very good, especially if they just played out the way game 1 did. They had the Ivern, which has been proven so effective in EU and hasn't really been seen in any other regions. And this looked like it was going towards an all-EU final. And then Flash Wolves showed why they're a good team. They waited for H2K to make the team fighting mistake. H2K had tanks, but very little damage. If I remember right, their main damage was Rise and like Sivir, which they do a lot of damage, don't get me wrong. But they can be zoned because they're relatively short range. And Flash Wolves found the fight. They caught out H2K multiple team fights in a row. They really just started to scale. They played around what H2K wanted to do. H2K got the Baron, wanted to push again, tried to get back into the game, and they just couldn't do it. They were too far behind. There was a massive team fight in the mid lane. H2K just got eliminated. I mean, Flash Wolves played the fight amazingly. They aced the Europeans, and then the series was tied 1-1. Yep. And everyone that was looking forward to that all-EU final just kind of had to blink because that was over that quickly. Right. Game 3, again, lived up to the series. It was slugfest. It was back and forth. There was knife's edge throughout the game. Fabiven got his hands on the Jace, which we've seen strength on and a lot of bans recently. And then Nuclear tried something a little different. He took the Caitlyn. But it wasn't able to work. H2K, they kind of had their demons. Fabiven kept pushing up maybe a little too much and getting caught out. Odawamne tried his hand at Rumble, which I'll talk about a little later, but he never had that ultimate that really changed the game. It never swung it one way or the other, like Rumble ult can do a lot. Right. For the first time, Flash Wolves had a lead in the early game, and they forced H2K into play on the back foot. Both teams were trying to make moves. Both teams were playing very well reactive, but they finally started to fall in the Flash Wolves' favor instead of H2K's favor. Right. Flash Wolves started winning some of the fights a little more often. They started getting to control of the map. There was only 5 kills by 24 minutes, but there were 7 towers that were down. It was methodical. It was objective focused. It was an analyst game of League of Legends, not a fans game. Right. That's for sure. H2K tried to get aggressive for the Baron. They needed something. They lost 3 members. They got pushed back. Their base got blown open by the Flash Wolves. The Flash Wolves stayed. They tried to end the game. They got punished. H2K got a Baron. You thought maybe this was game 2 on the other side, and then it fell flat. Flash Wolves stayed in control of the map. They reassessed what they had to do. They got back objective control and then just confidently pushed into H2K's base and finished off the series.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, we went into this tournament and, we definitely expected an all-EU final. We saw first, second, and third place EU teams going into it, No one really expects the Flash Wolves, should we say.
The Korean killers are now...
the European killers.
They're now the world champions.
Yeah. All right, so with that, we're going to move on to our third segment of the night. It's going to be called Interesting Picks. We always see pros trying to counter the meta with their oddball picks. We're going to talk about what picks this week excited us or made us go, uh-huh. Me personally, being a support main, I saw one pick this week that just so good. Oh, so good. It was Leona. She got one pick this tournament by Mythia against Kongdu Monsters, and is honestly the scariest matchup that I can ever think of to see in a solo queue game, because Leona herself is already like a force to be reckoned with, and unless you're playing like maybe Alistar or Janna or someone that can kite her fairly easily, you know, you're kind of SOL. So with the combination of Jhin makes her even worse. So first you get snared, and then you get snared again, and then you get stunned, and then you get stunned again. So between all the CC, Leona's passive, and Jin's already insane damage, like, what happens after you get E'd just once?
You die.
You just die. Like, it's over. Like, goodbye. Like, it was nice knowing you. You were at full HP. Now you're just goodbye. Like, bye-bye is nice knowing you. I mean, I would love to see this pick more so in the pro leagues. I love Leona. I love seeing very tanky, very just like, all right, we're going in now, you know, tanks. But with how strong we've seen range supports, and how, you know, Janna is just waiting on the wings, like, okay guys, I'm ready to go. Pick me, please. we probably won't be seeing Leona anytime soon. Vic, why don't you tell me about what your favorite pick from this week was?
And honestly, Kongdu is probably the one team you pick Leona against, because I think they were the de facto one of the weakest, maybe next to M19.
Yeah.
But I've loved this slow rise of Rumble that has been coming back over the last few weeks. You know, you've seen him played some in LCK every now and then. NA starting to pick him up a little bit, EU. But everyone that's been playing him are kind of the legacy Rumble players. You know, Balls has played it. Marn's played it over on Africa. And yeah, most of the Rumble games that were at IEM involved G2, I think, in some way or another. I think maybe one or two games had like H2K involved. But I think teams are starting to realize that with the fact that Maokai Nautilus is strong, that you just kind of can counter push with Rumble. You just get the farm. He was always known as that one or two item tank shredder.
Yep.
Once he got the 2 pin items, he got his ultimate rolling. I really hope, if this tank meta continues to stay and continues to develop some, that he starts to see more play, because with Renekton coming back up into the meta, with Gragas coming back up into a top lane meta a little bit, Rumble has that possibility to just push.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of significant nerfs to a lot of other tanks. I mean, we've only really seen, you know, some hits to Maokai. You know, in terms of like Gragas, Nautilus, even like some more tankier bruisers, like maybe even like a Darius. Like, we haven't seen like a lot of huge nerfs to their build paths, you know, or even their kits in general, you know. And by changing the Black Cleaver over to, you know, a Kindle Gem build, you know, we might see a little bit more like Darius's, and maybe Wonder will pick Garen or something. I don't know. Who knows? He just picks whatever he wants.
Maybe Splice will actually win some games if they go back to like Wonder's Garen.
All right. So with this next segment, we're going to be talking about something that's near and dear to a lot of students' hearts. The quote I like to say very often, and I'm going to save you the role play and say, I'm just disappointed. And to be honest, I'm actually very disappointed in M19. You know, M19, for those that don't know, is Albus Nox Luna under a new...
small changes.
Yeah, it's just some small changes. I mean, but like, at Worlds last year, they had such a weird showing. Like, no one was like, oh yeah, let's not, whatever. And then they ended up making it into out of group stages, and was like, whoa, that's awesome. So
they beat Rocks.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So it's just coming into this tournament, I said I had some higher expectations for them. You know, I said, you know, they're not the greatest team, and you know, they're definitely not tier 1, you know, the best in the world, but they're still a fairly decent team. They proved their own at Worlds, and here they are, not even making it out of the group stage, going 0-2, and I'm just like, is this the same team that I saw at Worlds? I mean, there's some small changes and, you know, a little bit change in branding, but, you know, what happened? That's what I was the most disappointed about. Seeing Albus Nox Luna at the Worlds and then having them not show up at IEM was a little disappointing. So Vic, why don't you tell me what you were a little disappointed in this week?
Yeah, I mean, I came very close to picking M19 as well. There was a lot of hype, especially because they hadn't really been seen. Again, Western viewers don't really get some of those wildcard regions that often.
Mm-hmm.
And people were maybe starting to expect some things out of some of these wildcard regions, and they just didn't look good. It wasn't that they fell flat. They didn't show up. They got rolled. But I'm going to go with a pick for my disappointment because I am very disappointed in the 2 LeBlancs that we got to see at IEM. We got to see her twice, and she had a 1-1 record. Now, that doesn't sound that bad, but this is a champion that during patch 7.3 in the major regions worldwide has had a pick ban presence of 99%. That means 99% of the games worldwide she has been picked or banned. That is an insane number, and I think that shows her worldwide appeal, that teams respect her power. She very rarely falls through a champ select. And the fact that she lost the game, and not even that, even the game she won, it wasn't due to the LeBlanc. When you see a champion with that kind of presence, you think of Mordekaiser back in the, season 5 World Championships?
Oh, Lord, yes.
If the champion gets through, they're going to carry. They're going to dominate, and we didn't see it. Maybe it was due to the players. I think maybe one of the games that it was won was Kongdu. So, it's not the biggest thing, and Perks was just wildly ineffective on it in the finals. But I was just really disappointed. I was so excited to see LeBlanc go through, and then it fell so flat.
Right. And I definitely agree. We're going to talk about Perks' LeBlanc a little bit later. It's okay. We'll get to it. But with our next segment, we're going to change a little topic right here. We're going to move on to our LCS. We're going to talk about what's got us hyped. We're going to make some predictions for the future. Our next topic will be making predictions for the future. We're going to be talking about matches that you should watch in the coming weeks and make predictions about their outcomes. And as we move back to the LCS, I am personally excited for the rematch between Cloud9 and FlyQuest. Hopefully we see some changes from Cloud9 from their previous game, and the sibling rivalry is just a little bit better this time around. Still going to be a great match. I definitely think this is going to be a 2-1 series, and probably the winner is going to go to FlyQuest again. They as a team are improving at such a drastic rate and might actually contest TSM and Cloud9 for that first place after this week. So just keep your eyes peeled. That's going to be a great game to watch. Watching the two brothers go at it is always fun. Across the pond, there are more cross group matches continue as the first game of the week, Misfits versus Unicorns of Love, and
chaos.
The most exciting one. Oh my gosh, so excited for this one. Misfits might not be G2, but they are still a very, very talented team. Every time I see them play, they're very patient. They're very, very macro oriented, and it's going to be similar to the G2 versus Unicorns of Love matchup. I think that this series might ultimately go to Unicorns of Love, but I think Misfits will give them a run for their money if they're able to capitalize on sometimes the over-aggression that Unicorns likes to play. Vic, why don't you tell me about your favorite matches for this week?
Honestly, in NA, there's a lot of really good matches this week. Like, looking at the thing, I'm excited being an NA fan at some of the matches this week.
Yep.
But the one I'm going to go with is Dignitas versus TSM. Now, that may seem like a weird matchup originally. People are like, Dignitas? But Dig has come alive over the last couple of weeks. They're part of the 76ers family now. It's part of the process, people. All of a sudden, Dig has gone from tied with Envious for last place to they're tied with CLG for a playoff spot. This is a very difficult week for Dig. P1 and TSM, they might have the hardest week of anybody. But TSM is going to be the true test because this TSM team has been playing really strong over the last couple of weeks as well. They took down C9. They've played very well. Their first 25, 30 minutes of the game is back to almost old TSM.
Yep.
I still have some questions about their late game. Their shot calling is still missing that key component. I think there's going to be a hell of a match. I think Dig shows up big. I think they've now had another week of prep, and continuing to gel together as a team, continuing to bring Someday and Chaser into the fold. But I think TSM's going to take it 2-1. Over in EU, this matchup may not seem that big because of how the season has played out, but I want to see how Fnatic H2K really plays out. Because on paper, and after the way H2K played through IEM, most people are probably looking at this as, oh, it's 2-0, H2K is going to run away with it. Fnatic's still in dysfunction. There's still so many questions to be answered. But I really am worried about H2K having a bit of a letdown. That was such an emotional event at IEM, especially for like Yankos and some of those players. They were so hyped to play. You could tell in Poland and in front of that crowd, the crowd was so behind them. And just the way that series ended for them against Flash Wolves has to be so heartbreaking. It's going to be key to see how H2K bounces back from that. Can they get themselves ready to go again for a big match? Meanwhile, in Fnatic, you talked about that announcement. Broxa, I'm going to fail his name so many times the rest of the season, is here to stay. Amazing's moved to Fnatic Academy. Broxa played well, but now that the sub tag is off, maybe now that some of that pressure to perform is gone, how can he really play? Right. I think H2K is going to have an IEM letdown approaching, and they're set to maybe lose this week. But I don't think Fnatic's going to be the team to pull off the upset. So 2-1 H2K.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with that. And for our final segment of the week, our rotating segment, we're going to be talking about the finals. We're going to be talking about the last match at IEM.
Oh
my gosh. So
not just because of how late it was.
Yeah, not just because of how late it was. Still, yet again, another shout out to all the people that were there from 7 a.m. to fucking 1 o'clock in the morning the next day. I'm sorry about the F-bomb, by the way. This is a family show. So, but shame on me. Shout out to all those people that stayed from 7 a.m. to 1 a.m. Not just
shout out to the coffee shops that made a bunch of money that day.
Yeah, wow. So you guys are the real MVP. Shout outs to all the production team that had to stay there till 1 a.m. from, probably even earlier than 7 a.m.
Shout out to, I don't know how many people saw that tweet, but Monty and Doa Skyping Papa Smithy and Crumbs from a bar back in Korea, just taunting them.
So with enough of our shout outs, we do a quick little back and forth about what we thought of the finals. Personally, I thought it was a lot shorter than I was expecting. It was a very easy 2-0, and G2 had been, just a little shaky throughout the tournament. But, it seemed like G2 through both games, they had early leads, they got first blood, they got first tower, and they weren't able to translate it into anything. And then Perks picks LeBlanc in game 1 and goes 2 defensive items after having a team gold league. Like, who does that? Like, I understand the enemy team might have a lot of CC, and you might need to, get off that CC, but, like, usually if you're playing an assassin like LeBlanc, it's either you kill them or you don't. Like, you're not going to stay in that fight forever. You're not an AD carry.
You're not supposed to stay in that fight forever.
Yeah. Like, and then the game length was also odd. Like, G2 had been playing fairly long games throughout the entire tournament, and here we go, and we have 30 minutes and 26 minutes. Like, these are some of the shortest games. Like it was like season 3 finals, season 3 world finals. We're like, yeah, it's fun. Everything's great. Oh my god! And then it's over.
SKT wins.
It's over.
Man, it really was season 3 finals. The delays again, I think, lasted longer that tournament than the games did.
Yeah. But that was just my takeaway from it. Vic, what did you think of the finals?
I do agree the game length was odd. I think, IEM was this tournament that sparked the game time discussion. How much of a factor was it really? But in this case, it was a factor. Both these teams' styles played towards longer games.
Yep.
I'm not surprised by the 2-0. I think either way this was going to be a 2-0 because of how late in the day it was and how long these teams have been going and just the mental factor here. I think whichever team won game 1 was just kind of destined to win this series.
Right.
But, G2 had this style that they've been playing where they just stay back or, they keep the game long. They want to stay back. They don't want to do anything too worrisome. And it's how they really beat Rocks is they just kind of absorbed, and then exploded. Flash Wolves do the same thing. We saw it in the semifinals against H2K. They absorbed the early game, and then strike. So both teams were doing the same thing. So I agree. I'm really surprised with how quick these games went, considering I think both teams wanted this to go over 30 minutes.
Right.
I think part of that, though, contributed to the fact that G2, after 20 minutes, you talked about, they had the early game lead, I think, in both games.
Yep.
But something hit 20 minutes and something forgot to click in G2's mind because they just kind of looked lost. Flash Wolves just played around them. They played around the map. They played around the neutral objectives. G2 just couldn't contest anything after 20 minutes.
Yep.
And towards the end of this tournament, we were seeing G2 put a kind of weird priority on specifically Sivir for Sven, and then also putting Mithy on Tom Kinch. Now, he only played the Tom Kinch 3 times, but he was 1-2 in those 3 games. He was repeatedly kind of caught out, especially in that game 1 of the finals.
Mm-hmm.
He just didn't seem comfortable enough on the Tom Kinch to be bringing it out when it mattered. And Sven's Sivir left a lot to be desired, I think, especially when there was other picks still available.
Yep.
It wasn't like there was 380 carry bands, 480 carry bands, and the Sivir came out. G2 really prioritized it, and it's questionable. I think from the Flash Wolves, the series showed me they can be a good team, but I don't think they're a great team yet.
Yeah.
Because in both the semifinals and the finals, they were behind in the early game.
Yep.
Consistently behind.
Mm-hmm.
They're okay with giving opponents advantages to let them make a mistake, to wait for them to push for those advantages. The problem is, against the really good top teams, think KT Rolster, think SK Telecom, you give them a 3 to 4K gold lead at 20 minutes, and you can kiss that game goodbye.
Yep.
They're going to be talking about how to play game 2.
Yep.
And so, Flash Wolves are called the Korean Killers. Karsa's played very well. MMD played well. I think he was Flash Wolves' weakest link, and that says something, considering the skill of top lane that was at this tournament.
Right.
But Flash Wolves aren't oh my god, they won IEM. We need to pay attention to this team around Worlds time.
Right.
I think we should pay attention to this team around Worlds time, but I don't think they're going to actually make the run they need to because of their early game.
Right. And I definitely agree with that. Like, I'm looking at stats right now, and I take a look at the team gold advantage, and 18 minutes. G2 is up by nearly 3,000 gold. And it dips into Flash Wolves' favor around 27 minutes, and then they just run away with the game. And then in game 2, same thing. It's a little shorter. Like the goal dips into G2's favor around 8 minutes, and then around 20 minutes it starts just completely going in the favor of Flash Wolves. Like, and then I agree with you. And again on the Sivir, like, I'm looking at game 2, picks and bans, Jhin and Varus are already taken off the table by both teams. So you have really just Ashe, Caitlyn, and Sivir left. So unless you're going to pick Karma, Sivir is like the only pick left. But I haven't been convinced, by a lot of these, by even some of these Sivir plays. And judging by how poorly he did in game 1, I don't think I would put him again on game 2.
Well, and if you go all the way back to the semifinals with, I think it was game 1 against the Rocks Tigers, G2 were winning that game. Mm-hmm. They were coming back. They were pulling it in hand. Rocks were starting to fall apart. And then Sven flashed over a wall into near melee range against 2 people from the Rocks Tigers.
Yep.
And he just dies because he used Spell Shield like 3 seconds before the flash.
Yes.
That's questionably aggressive on a Sivir.
Yeah. Please stop being Wild Turtle. Please. I think it's also good to note that Sivir throughout this entire tournament got 9 picks, 2 bans, and out of those 9 picks, she had 1 win.
Ooh.
1. And it was Sven playing against Rocks Tigers versus G2 Esports. Sven had the most picks on Sivir. He had a total of 5 picks. 4 of them were losses. Like, at what point are you G2 Esports and say, hey, maybe we should just play Caitlyn? Like Caitlyn,
or
Caitlyn
any other picks. Yeah, Ashe is another kind of utility AD carry. Yes, the late game damage isn't as good as Sivir, but you can't expect to go late in these international tournaments.
Yep.
There's too many things that outdo what Sivir wants to do.
Yeah.
Sivir, I've been seeing Sivir as a counter pick to Jhin. That is where I've been seeing Sivir succeed because of the fact that you can abuse his a lack of attack speed and only 4 shots. And in that time, Sivir can get off like a Q, 3 W hits, and another auto attack.
Yep.
So it's a Sivir favored matchup. But G2 are picking it into everything and anything, and blind picking it.
I mean, I don't hate the Sivir and Tahm Kench combination, because giving that sort of utility to your team on basically a global scale is really, really good.
Oh, I like it too. I don't like it on G2.
Yeah, I definitely agree. One last thing I wanted to touch on before we finally sign up for the night is Game 2, we saw a Kled ban, and that had to have been a misclick. I don't see who on Flash Wolves plays Kled. Karsa has any games on Kled this year or last year. MMD doesn't have any games on Kled. Who's going to pick Kled? Maple? Maple's going to play mid Kled? Is that what's going to happen? Is that what's happening now? Like,
I wouldn't be surprised if it was a misclick. Let's be honest. They'd been awake for like 12 hours. They were also probably very disheartened after game 1 because of the way it went. Let's be honest. Expect probably heard something similar to Kled and either just misclicked it or, it's maybe they just thought they'd be fine with it. That's why they didn't say anything.
I mean, you could have banned away like Kazakhs. Maybe that was the thing. Kazakhs and Kled are like right next to each other or something. I don't even know.
But at that point, why don't you just tell the ref, hey, can we, reset this? Maybe because of IEM, they were afraid the reset was going to take 2 hours. I don't know. But
who knows, right? They're just like, oh, we banned Kled. Whatever. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Let's get this out. Guys, we finished second. Good job.
Okay. Let's move on. I mean, if that truly was the case, then don't take our word for it. Don't go to Twitter and just be like, hey, I heard on this podcast that you guys. Yeah,
if anyone listening to this has got the clout to do that, call me. No.
All right. So with that, I think we can call that an episode. IEM was definitely fantastic this week. If you have an opportunity, at least watch some of the VODs, I definitely recommend watching the semifinal games. And even the final game was still a good game to watch, even though it was fairly short. So, take a look at those. Maybe take a look at your favorite teams. Maybe you can watch some of their games as well. But that does it for us today. I'd like to thank Vic Sharp Watney for joining me today. If you liked our show, please make sure to follow us on Twitch. Find us on Facebook, Electronic Gaming Federation, Twitter @official EGF, and YouTube, Electronic Gaming Federation's everything are in the links down below. And from all of us here at EGF, I'd like to thanks for watching. You can join us next Monday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be talking about, we will be talking about LCS once again, so make sure to join us. We'll be back to our regular scheduled programming. But from everyone here at EGF, thank you for watching. My name is Alex Shinkari Erdenberger. I'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.